you're a black libertarian, and in the Libertarian Party, you know, and I know some of those people in the New Hampshire Libertarian Party, reparations is not something they like to talk and push within that particular party. I never believed in reparations because to me it was sold as America's white people's punishment and paying back to black people for the greatest sins. But when it was sold to me and explained to me that it's more of a labor issue, that it's an unpaid, bill that needs to be paid for the labor to the black people rebuilding this country, it made a lot more sense. How are you pushing reparations? What's your idea of reparations? Because I believe it is a labor issue paid to American descendants of slaves, not as, payback for America's greatest sins of white people against black people. How do you sell that in the Libertarian Party? Because they're having a hard time dealing with this.
I could sell it, dude. Look, if we took all that money from Ukraine, not only could you pay reparations, you could pay reparations to white people who feel sad about paying reparations.
Hey, come on.
Here's the thing. First and foremost, most libertarians have actually read, not most, but a lot of libertarians have read Rothbard's breakdown on the argument or case for reparations 50 years ago, right? That article exists. I can't retweet it because I just found out I got banned for 7 days on Twitter like 30 minutes ago. But anyway, I'll repost it across the different platforms. The conversation is, again, about tort law. It's about stolen labor. It's about stolen property, because if a bunch of people were forced to build a building and that's their labor and they did all of the work, it's actually their building. That's the reality of it. There's no statute of limitations on those type of property rights. That's stolen labor, so forth and so on. The example that I give all the time, before Johnny Cochran died, he was working on this thing called and for people that the 17-year-olds that's watching this may not know who Johnny Cochran was. He was the attorney that got OJ off, right? Amazing attorney. He worked on this thing called the Reparations Assessment Group, where he was looking into all of the corporate charters, right? Because when people say, and it's a 100%, I get, if I'm a white dude, I'm going like, bro, I'm just here trying to go to work and have a beer on Sundays.
Yeah.
I didn't have to do with that. And that's 100% understandable. 100%. But it's packaged in a way pop culture does it. And I would challenge everybody that's centrist, libertarian, or more right of center to ask yourself, like this teacher, maybe you were told something was something that it wasn't. Maybe you were sold a bill of goods, a false bill of goods. So you got TV shows like Atlanta, that a very popular, urban show, that packaged reparations, kind of like reparations came down and white people had to get in this line when they were getting their checks and they had to pay back into this thing. You've been told something that's not what it is. It is a labor issue. It is a stolen labor issue. It is a murder issue. It is a stolen property issue. Now, go back a bit. Johnny Cochran started this thing called the Reparations Assessment Group, where he was going after corporate charters. Corporate charters extend beyond the life of one person or even the founders of that corporation. He tagged Wells Fargo, Norfolk Southern, a bunch of insurance companies. Those Norfolk Southerns, the railways and stuff like that. And he was going to do a mathematical equation based on how much labor they quantified, adjusted for time and inflation and all of that. And he was going to go after those guys, as well as the United States government, because the United States government made an agreement after so-called emancipation. Emancipation just means transfer of ownership. It does not mean freedom, right? Where they said, okay, we kind of messed these people up. That's where the whole 40 acres and a mule came from. Andrew Johnson gets in and goes, no, we're not doing it. They reneged on it. So the conversation about what we're having right now wouldn't have even been in the space if the United States government on the federal level would have handled and did what they said they were going to do however long ago. When you're talking about this conversation, it is from that perspective. If you feel like left out or you feel like you have a claim because you're Irish and your family came over here willingly but dealt with indentured servitude, you think you have a claim, you should take it to court and you should rumble up. But if you're willing to say these things in alignment with tort agreements, contracts, property rights, so forth and so on. You agree with those concepts. And then when it's presented to you properly, if you still say, well, still, black people shouldn't get something, I would question where your racism actually lies. Because if you have a argument as a white person and go, well, my family's land was stolen, you should be asking for reparations from and make your family whole too.
Yeah.
So if you're willing to be that obtuse, that you're so mad that black people who clearly our ancestors in America had a fucked up time. If you're actually going, we ain't even got to go back to slavery. We can talk about Jim Crow. We can talk about segregation. We can talk all of that, right? But I have to question why you're so upset that black people will have this conversation. A few of those people get upset with me when I say it this way, and I explain it in a manner where I'm saying these are consistent with liberty principles. Libertarians love contracts. A contract was breached.
Yeah.
There are no... And these guys understand this because they all love Game of Thrones. Oh, Jon Snow might have been the rightful ruler. Oh, Khaleesi might have been the rightful ruler. Their elders were done wrong and blah, blah, blah. You guys understand this concept. You agree with it. But somehow, when the center of the scope of black people in America start to have the conversation, because I don't even know if I land fully on it, because what are you going to give it to me in fiat currency? I don't know if I want that. Of course you'd give me $1 million as BRICS is inviting all of these other different nations and the dollar's being devalued. So that conversation can go, maybe you'll give me mine in Bitcoin. My point in saying this is the conversation has not been settled, but if someone is presenting it and showing you that the way that you knew about a thing has been wrong, you've been lied to by leftist propaganda, you want to ignore the information that's in alignment with your leaders in the libertarian circles, I have to question your impetus for doing so. Mm-hmm. As well, lastly, I just think that this conversation around reparations, if I'm a white dude, I would so quickly be advocating for this from that perspective, not take it out of my check. But yeah, the government did something wrong to black folks. One, because I absolutely could piggyback on it if I'm a white dude. I just got to find out where I was wrong and fight it up, right? And two, even if from a negative perspective, once the conversation about reparations is done, at least we can all agree that slavery, black Americans suffered a different type of slavery than anyone else in America. That's just a fact. That's not me being mean. That's not being disrespectful to other people's struggles. That's not me, any of those things. If we can at least land there, if these black people come up with a way to find their claims and get the government to handle it, it could just be land. That would do so much for race relations in America. Yeah. With white people getting behind it going like, no, the government is the problem. It's not me, the average white dude. The government did something wrong to these people's ancestors, just like I think this was done wrong to our ancestors. If you're Jewish, you 100% understand that, right? That is something that could show so much solidarity between the American people against overreaching and corrupt portions of this bloated government. That would do more to heal the stain on our flag than damn near anything else. So I am open to bring the information, you know?
It's like that teacher who got all emotional about that flag. It's the same kind of emotion. Like, if you just emotional, like, that is a symbol of everything against me. There's no listening. Yeah. There's no. I don't know if people got it in their head that they take it out of your check. Like there was less debate destroying Iraq for 20 years. Take it out of that budget. Yeah. How do you not know that?
And now let me tell you another reason why black people get so upset. Because these governments will pretend like slavery wasn't bad. Nobody should get reparations. While currently there's between, I think, maybe 12 or 13 different groups that either have received reparations from the American government or are currently receiving them. So that's already on the table. Yeah. Then as you say, oh, we can't talk about it. We don't have any money, right? Then you print up billions upon billions upon billions of dollars and send it to Ukraine. At least if you printed that money up and gave it to black Americans that could prove their claim, whatever way it happened, right? That money would go back into the American economy. Mm-hmm. So this argument would solve so many things. I question, and again, let me be clear. Let me argue against how reparations is presented. I am also not saying that the government should print up trillions and trillions of dollars in fiat currency. I want to be clear, because if I leave myself open, one of those goofballs will say, see, Maj is advocating for more money printed from the Federal Reserve. Not what I said, meant, or implied. So I'm not a fan of that. Again, I was not there. I didn't make Andrew Johnson say, no, we're reneging on the deal that we said we were going to give you guys. They did the same thing with Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman led her own regiment to fight against the South. A woman led a regiment. She never got, mind you, those soldiers got paid. Harriet Tubman, until her dying day, was never paid by the Union. Never. And so when there's a wrong, generational wrong, we acknowledge it. We as Americans recognize that there's a stain on the flag. It would be great if all Americans can at least, when my Jewish homies are like, we will never forget. We will always remember this atrocity, and we're going to, anything that's kind of infringing on that atrocity, nah, we not with it. I 100% my Jewish homies saying that. I get it. Your family, your elders were attacked, murdered, gassed, and it is what it is. There ain't no statute of limitations on that. But saying that to say, if we could put our biases and bigotry down a bit with right information, then I think more people will be open to the concept and how that looks without, raping the American taxpayer as well.
So, hey, I appreciate you coming on and saying all this stuff. It's really interesting, and it's great to get this perspective. And my question is, this is what I've said. So I agree with reparations. I think that exactly what Kurt said, that the money we sent to Ukraine, we could have given everybody reparations, and we could have given reparations to the white people who were upset about the black people get. But that's never happening. And what I'm saying is that, our government is so corrupted, it's so out of the hands of the people that we can't even get the things done that we all agree on.
Yeah,
like
right.
we all even Trumpers agree that the government should give us health care, and there isn't even a Democrat pushing that right now. There's no one in government pushing for that right now. So that's what I'm saying. We all agree student loan. We all agree we should end those wars and invest that money back here. We can't do the things that we agree on. So how? Nobody has ever laid out a plan that showed me that we can get this done first before all the stuff we agree on, when most of the country doesn't agree on this. So what do you say to that?
It's not, no one's ever, I can't get 10 of my homies to come to my house at the same day and time. It's not going to happen. So America's not built upon us agreeing. The Marines in Philadelphia and Sun Tavern wasn't made with dudes just sitting down and we figured it out and agreed. They fought, argued, and drank. The Constitution. These are ideas that we sculpt around to find something that is a common denominator. And when you say there hasn't been, a consensus, there's a book called From Here to Equality. This couple are the foremost eminent, way more informed about this concept of reparations and what that potentially could look like in America. I suggest everybody check the book out. And again, having because I'm reparations open to conversation. I don't trust the American government to ever do anything right, regardless of if it's something that I agree with or if I disagree with. If I say we should get out of Afghanistan and we've been there for 2 decades, Trump set it up pretty cool for the exit plan. Biden will come and botch it, right? So I don't generally believe the United States government or government in general is very good at anything. This does not mean that we don't try or we don't have that conversation. And I do think that if there's a general consensus, I don't want mob rule or it has to be tyrannical. Everybody better agree or else. I'm not a fan of that. Some people that are African American will say, I don't want reparations. Even if you guys got a check cut for me, I don't want it. I'll go, okay, cool. I understand that. The beauty of America is our ability to figure out solutions for the people that need solutions to whatever issues they're dealing with, and the people that it does not relate to to just go, that has nothing to do with me. That's why I want white people to say, I can recognize that African American elders and ancestors on this level with chattel slavery, if they have a claim, great. That's their rumble. For me, if I want to fight that rumble for my Irish American ancestors for indentured servitude, that's my fight. The common denominator is not whether we agree or the level we agree to. The common denominator, when you get to that everybody can quickly get behind, is the government has been the problem with all of these things.
Yeah. There's the libertarian in you coming out right there. There it is.
Take slavery, right? Or take let's say let's use segregation and desegregation, right? White people said we don't like black people, right? We're gonna do the captivity thing, whatever, blah, 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 right? They used government to sanction that, to make it laws. They used government to make legislation that said, hey, Frederick Douglass's caretaker, you cannot teach him to read a book. It's against the law. The government did it. The government did that. If white people didn't like African people, black people, whatever that was, right? Whatever it was, if they didn't like them, and if the government the state would not have sanctioned it, you would have just had voluntary association. You would have just had cool white people going like, yo, y'all are tripping. The black dudes over there make really, really good food. They got really, really good books on math and science, and y'all are tripping. The black dudes would have been like, yo, y'all are bugging. I know some of these white dudes that's cool as hell, man. Right? You would have just had voluntary association and disassociation. So then that happens. Now you can't teach black people to read. They can't have guns. They can't participate in any of the human activities that we contradictorily said is due to every single human in our supreme law of the land. Fast forward a bit to the 1960s. White people were enjoying the segregation. Black businesses were enjoying the segregation because we had all of our own businesses. If white people was like, yo, that's my man. If black people was like, yo, that's my man, across those racial barriers, they chose to do it. But it was against the law. Then the 1960s come and government says to those same white businesses that I'm fine with a bigot or a racist running a business and saying we don't want your kind in here. I know where not to give my money. But then the government then said, even though they made the problem by sanctioning it and saying you cannot do this, segregated water fountains, segregated schools, segregated whatever, then the government said, you know what, psych, now you gotta do it. Now you got these racist white folks nice and comfortable with how it was going. Now the government came in and said, no, now you got to do it this way. The problem, the overall problem is, obviously, I got to say this, because there might be some people with the mentality of a 4-year-old. Obviously, you should not be openly racist to humans. You're all humans, right? But the problem is you do get to be racist towards humans. I'm a black dude. If I decide to say, I today just don't like white people, I get to say that. That's a part of freedom. It's low class, it's stupid, but I get to say that. And if I get to say, I only want to teach firearm safety to black people, and I hold up the Peter Griffin card and go, you're too light to come into my class. I get to do that. It's wrong. But all of the good white folks should be like, yeah, we can't support that guy. And reverse. The problem is we're not looking at it from a voluntary association or disassociation standpoint. We're looking at this part. We're not looking at the government created the problem, then created more problems by saying we have the solution. That is a common ground that every single person that has ever looked at their check and saw that the government took money out of it, everybody will go, the government is the problem. That's where we should start from.
Maj, we got to get you out of here, but the final question for today is, take a look at this real quick. This is Dave Smith, and I think Dave Smith is one of the most sanest voices within the Libertarian Party. He wasn't my first choice to be the Libertarian candidate, but right now I wish he would have done it. He says, I'm glad that the school backed down and that kid can wear his Gadsden flag. He seems like a good kid and his mom seems like a good mom. This situation should be yet one more reminder for all good parents out there, a wake-up call. Many of you are sending your kids to school who are actively hate you and everything you believe in. These teachers are in many ways raising your kids as much, if not more, than you are. I understand that everyone is not in the situation that I'm in, and it's a lot harder to get your kids out of that environment. But think about it. What's at stake? Your children are being indoctrinated with a disgusting anti-freedom ideology that despises you. I can't think of any priority in life that would be above removing them from that place. I look at you, you're a black libertarian, and you are a capitalist, you are pro-Second Amendment, you're an anti-interventionist, but some people have had problems with your stances on reparations for whatnot. People within your own party, they don't think you're the quintessential libertarian, which to me is just mind-boggling, because Dave has even pointed out some of the positive points you have. I have looked at you as a recruiting person, a mechanism to get black people and people of color into the Libertarian Party. How do you operate within the Libertarian Party when some of those reject you and say you're not the quintessential libertarian?
They can't reject me. You're talking about like people in the Twitter page. They're not real. They're not real people. They don't. This is going to sound arrogant, and it's not my intent. Other than if Ron Paul had a disagreement with my approach, I would listen. If Dave Smith had a problem with my approach, I would listen. If Larry Sharp had a problem with my approach, I would listen. If Thomas Massey, who showed up to do a fundraiser for me, that said Maj understands and can explain freedom better than me. I have the video. If Thomas Massey had a problem with my approach, all these people have my phone number, and they have no problem telling me exactly when I'm wrong. If they said, hey, Maj, you're a little wrong here. If Scott Horton, who has pulled me and said, Maj, your approach on this needs to be refined, I would listen. These people that I just named have done more for the liberty movement without being rude, without being disrespectful, without attempting to be edgy, because the truth, respectful and direct truth, is edgy enough. None of us have recruited more people to the libertarian movement than Ron Paul. None of us. None of us have been on a 40-year hot streak with being right like Ron Paul. So the people that are not listening to what I'm saying, it's like a very, very small group of people with megaphones, like on Twitter. Those people have not done more for the liberty movement than I have. Dr. Boyce Watkins, who's a super pro-black finance PhD that teaches financial literacy in urban communities. He's a libertarian because of conversations that we've had. There's countless people that I know of just in moving around that are like, yo, the way that you explain it makes sense. I know what my role is. To your point, I am very, very good at recruiting because I can explain things very simply in a way that even though it could come off harsh, nobody's really offended by it unless I'm being offensive on purpose. Being offensive on purpose does not help recruitment. If that was the case, all of these guys that say these aggressive things or offensive things or what they deem offensive would have recruited more people than Ron Paul. So these other people that say these things, here's the reality. They're intimidated by me. They're dweebs. And they know that I'm going to bring many, many cool, strong people into the Libertarian Party. And in doing so, the dweebs and nerds have to be quiet. Some of these guys like being the big fish in a small pond. I think libertarianism should be the entire ocean. And if you don't really know how to swim and you're comfortable in that little pond where you can do your memes and all that other good stuff, and I love a good meme, but if you're not interested in expanding the movement, and some of these guys have said it, they're not interested. They believe that we are in a post-influential society. They believe that you can't influence the general public. That's clearly not true. You know, a third party on a national level will never make it. The principles that made America were written by classic liberals, which are what we would call libertarians today. Yeah. So the fact that these guys can't even see it, I can't see them because they didn't even know that Rothbard gave a breakdown for reparations 50 years ago before Maj was even born.
Yeah, yeah. Well, listen, you have an uphill battle with some of these guys, but it looks like you have the right attitude. You're just going to keep on going. Maj Toure, I got to tell you, it really pissed me off because I'm one of those anti-imperialist leftists who's pushed for this coalition with libertarians, having shows with Jimmy Dore and Dave Smith together, with Clint Russell and whatnot, talking about areas we can find common ground. I met a lot of these guys in New Hampshire when Tulsi Gabbard was up there, and I see a lot of them because of their idea of what the quintessential libertarian is, and they say you're not it, really pisses me off because they're really hurting their chances right now. And also the Libertarian Party, I do not know why they don't have a candidate right now. The opportunity is ripe for the Libertarian Party, and they're blowing it, in my mind, by having their feet in quicksand and not getting a candidate out there right now to push their message. That's just my final thought.
We got a candidate. We got a candidate. I know who he is. It's a good choice.
Who?
But outside of that, right?
Break the news.
I don't know if I'm going to call him after this, and I'll tweet it if he says it's okay.
Please. Well, you can't tweet for 7 days, so text me personally.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Those guys don't speak for most libertarians. Those guys don't even speak for most libertarians in their own state. They don't. When you go to New Hampshire and you see so many, I've been to Manchester. When you see so many beautiful libertarians and what they're trying to create with the Free State Project, right? Mm-hmm. This existed. Free State Project was 20 years of work, not just with 3, tweeters. These guys don't speak for most of those. So I want to challenge everybody to, look outside of what's being presented, as, this is what it means to be a libertarian, as well as, if you're one of those people in New Hampshire that know that or wherever, that know that these things are wrong, highlight the voices that are right, that are in alignment with what you're doing. Don't argue and try to, go back and forth with these guys. They're nothing. They're nothing. There's so many other real folks fighting for liberty. Thank God for Larry Sharpe in New York State. Okay? Mm-hmm. Thank God for Dave Smith. Thank God for Eric July. Thank God for Big Boy from Outkast, who's been a libertarian for 20 years. So just highlight the people. Don't be the silent majority. Be the more vocal majority. Because at a certain point, like Dr. Martin Luther King says, it becomes a time where your silence becomes betrayal.
Well, I'm glad we got the chance to highlight you today, Maj Toure. Black Guns Matter, Maj Toure, ladies and gentlemen. When he gets his Twitter back, go hit him on up. Thank you so much for joining us today, Maj.
Thank you, fellas.
Have a good one.
Come see us live on tour. We're going to be in Toledo, Detroit, St. Louis, Tampa, Boca Raton, Orlando, Dallas, Houston, San Diego, Bloomington, Illinois. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets.